Hello, Acceleration Nation. On today's Sick Career podcast, I have another career coach on, Bob Goodwin. There are 137,000 career coaches on LinkedIn, and most of them, frankly, suck. Bob is not one of those sucky ones. He tells it as it is. He thinks about the job search, kind of like job acquisition, how we do here at Kadima. He talks about how it is a sales and marketing activity. And then there is some amazing advice and an awesome acronym, and I dig acronyms, about how to keep an even keel through a very challenging up and down job search. So I think you'll really like this conversation that I have with Bob. You'll learn a lot, and I think it'll help you to accelerate your career. And finally, before we get into the episode, as a reminder, if I can ever help you with your career, help you get more interviews, help you get more offers, help you get more money, we offer 3 different ways that we can help. 1, we have one-on-one coaching directly with me. We take a very limited number of clients in on a monthly basis. You need to apply. We're pretty selective there, but we do offer that opportunity. If you're looking for group coaching, we do offer group coaching. It is coaching sessions twice a month with me, and you also get some support with negotiation services. And then finally, if you're more of a do-it-yourself type person, we do have a digital course called the Job Acquisition Method, which will give you all the scripts, all the templates, all the worksheets, and the framework to own your career. So buckle up, grab your coffee, go for your walk, however you listen to your podcast. Get ready for a great podcast between me and Bob Goodwin. And as a reminder, own your career. Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Sick Career Podcast. Today, I have a career expert on the show, Bob Goodwin. Bob, like every darn episode that I have, I met him on LinkedIn. There's 930 million people on LinkedIn, so that's going to keep me plenty busy for several years. We're both in the career acceleration business. We chatted a couple of months back, and we have very similar philosophies, and I really appreciate his approach. But with that, I want to hand it off to Bob. And Bob, tell the Sick Career audience a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah, so Alan, first of all, thanks for having me on. Like you said, we met a few weeks ago, and we do see things fairly similarly in some good ways, I hope, and in ways that your audience will appreciate. But, my background is I'm a sales leader, and historically, that's what I have done. And but my clients have been big marketers, companies like Procter and Gamble, Samsung, Coca-Cola. So my clients have been world-class marketers. So kind of professionally, the way I've grown up is in sales, but calling on and helping marketers. The second thing I love to do is connect people. That's always been one of my favorite things. People talk about what's your superpower. I think one of mine would be connecting people. I just genuinely enjoy doing that. And because I'm a networker, you end up meeting a lot of people in job search. So about 15 years ago, I was networking with somebody, and it just was very apparent to me that they didn't really appreciate their job search as being the sales and marketing exercise. And I will unpack this in a couple of minutes. But I started Career Club almost 3 years ago now, where basically the thesis is bringing sales and marketing principles to help people find a career that matters to them.
Awesome. And let's dig into the sales and marketing aspect, because I also come from more of a marketing aspect, but now lots of sales in my role here. And I've been very involved with sales and sales teams. Talk to me about how you see the job search, as a sales and marketing exercise.
We'll start with the marketing piece, because I think that it does leave the other one, which is around understanding your unique value proposition. What problems do you help a company solve? What opportunities do you help them capitalize on? How do you articulate that in a cogent, concise, compelling way? Who's the target audience for that solution? And how do you reach out to them? How do you find them? How do they find you? Those are things that marketers would talk about all day long. And then on the sales side of it, one is salespeople know that they need to have a pipeline of opportunities. They've got a quota and they need a pipeline of opportunities, or sometimes you hear people talk about it as a funnel, and at all different levels of development. The good news for the job acquirer, I love that, is you have a quota of one. You need exactly one new job. And so what we find is that people tend to not have a robust enough pipeline of opportunities. So we teach them about the activity levels, that you don't know where your job is going to come from. So you need to be networking, applying online, building relationships with executive recruiters, direct outreach to companies, other tactics to build the top end of the opportunities that you're working on. The second piece that's very sales oriented is networking calls, and for sure interviews are straight up sales calls. They just
Mm-hmm.
are. You are trying to drive the conversation towards a conclusion where there's an ask, and you are trying to advance something. But most people aren't salespeople, so why would you be any good at this? And so when we start to teach people how to structure a networking call, how to help shape the direction of an interview towards the conclusion that you're trying to drive it towards, those are very much sales behaviors. So I would say in the marketing piece, it's really about positioning, getting your positioning right. And then the sales bit is around getting the activities right.
And I love how you think about it as a sales activity, the interview or the networking call, informational interview, or
That's right.
things of that nature. How do you generally advise your clients, friends, yourself in terms of making the most out of those sales calls, whether it be an interview, whether it be an informational interview or networking calls
Yeah.
used synonymously?
Yeah, obviously those are different kinds of meetings. So if it's an informational interview, well, that is sort of the point of it, and you're genuinely seeking input, feedback from somebody. Oftentimes, we'll see that kind of an informational interview could be a target company, and hey, what's it like to work there? What do you like about there? How's this compared to other places you've worked at? I'm looking at a role like this, et cetera, et cetera. Things that I think would be fairly common knowledge on some informational interviews. Another form of an informational interview, though, could precede some of the resume work and the positioning work. When somebody is not sure what direction they want to go in, they might have been in, I'm making this up, client success for the past 10 years, and they're not sure that's what they want to do. Or maybe they want to pivot that into sales because they think sales is a more lucrative option. Maybe somebody's been in finance and now they want to go into technology, and just getting input from people. Another great informational interview thing is people tend to not be very good at quantifying their accomplishments and really understanding what their
Mm-hmm.
role was on a given project, and going back to former colleagues and asking them, hey, remember that project when we launched product X? You were leading this, I was leading that. What's your recollection of, one, how that project ended up, and two, my role in that? And it's amazing the either, oh, I forgot that, or really you saw me contributing in that way, because we're just a little unaware of things like that. Networking calls. I would recommend to people the 20-minute networking meeting book by Nathan Perez. It's really, really good. It's very tactical, like it's easy to apply, it's easy to understand. But essentially, the point of networking meetings is not looking for red meat. Hey, Alan, do you know of a job for me? Hey, Alan, I'm looking for this kind of a role. Do you know of one for me? Because what you're going to do is blow through your network and get a bunch of, no, I'm not really, no, I don't know of an open role for that. And then you're going to come to somebody like you and say, well, I've been through my whole network and it didn't get me anywhere. That's because you had the wrong ask of, hey, do you know of a job right now for me? Because most people aren't job boards and know of this exact role. The point of a networking meeting is to expand your network. And so in a networking call, what you're trying to do is expand your network. You're trying to meet more people, because what the data would suggest is you're most likely to find your next role from what would be called a weak connection. So it might be somebody who's 3,
Mm-hmm.
4, 5 degrees away from your best friends and people that you can text right now, or people that you work very closely with, or people you kind of worked with. It's going to be several degrees away from that. So what you're really trying to accomplish in a networking meeting is two things. One is, who else do you know that I should be talking to or could be talking to, who might help me as I continue to network? And asking for, who do you know in your network who's a good networker? People think of people like, oh, Alan's a great networker, you should talk to him. The second thing, and this is the secret sauce of networking, it was the very first LinkedIn article I ever wrote. It's the most powerful question you can ask, and it's, how can I help you? Most people go into a networking meeting with a gimme, gimme, gimme. and maybe not quite that crass, but it's definitely like, I know what I am looking for from you. And most people don't even pay 5% attention. Like, I wonder how I could help Alan. And genuinely, not checkbox, but genuinely saying, Alan, one of my goals for today's meeting is to learn more about what you do. And if there's any way that I can be of help to you, connecting you to people in my network, whether it's a subject matter expert, somebody who might be interesting guest for you, I would love to do that. That by itself is a highly differentiated networking move. And like, I
Yeah.
instantly like you. Like, thank you for asking. Even if I can't think of anything right now, the fact that you genuinely asked and were willing to help me is a very differentiated networking thing. So we've talked a little bit about informational interviews, more of a networking call.
Yeah, and that is some sick career advice, Bob. I love that question. I usually recommend to people to save that to the end, at the end of the conversation, thanking them for their time, thanking them for their advice, and then saying, "Hey, Bob, is there anything I can do for you? I really appreciate it." And
Yep.
that is a very unusual thing. I've been on the giving side of a lot of informational interviews.
Yes.
I can only remember two or three times that someone actually offered that to me, and it stands out. And also, Bob Cialdini, who wrote the book on influence, talks about the power of reciprocity. So if you do
Yes.
something good for someone, you offer something good, they will be very likely to do something good back for you. So that's some really great advice.
And for people who think that networking is kind of cheesy or weird, or somehow is not their style, I would encourage people just to think about sowing and reaping is a real thing. If you sow help, assistance, goodness into somebody, the natural fruit that comes from that is them wanting to help you. So it's not manipulative, it's not Machiavellian, just trying to play a better chess game than the other person's playing. It's like, when you try and help people, they will try and help you. It's just the way that it works. Just one last thing, super quick, Alan, and maybe this is, hopefully this will be sick advice, but the other kind of sales call that we were talking about is just an interview. And
Mhm.
the key thing in an interview is preparation. So much of the interview
Yes.
happens before you ever showed up. And it's being very confident in your message, your value proposition, the classic tell me about yourself, and being able to really articulate what it is that you do and why you are who you are. The second big piece is the job description. They're giving you tons of breadcrumbs on what they're looking for, and to not pay serious attention to the job description is obviously a mistake. If you're getting into second, third, fourth rounds, what's the accumulated knowledge that you're learning about the company, the people, the role, all that kind of stuff? And then I like to say the resume might get you the interview. The stories you tell will get you the job. And that's the other main piece of preparation, is having a playlist of stories that you know how to tell really effectively, and again, concisely and on point, being able to contextualize those stories to the person that you're talking to, or the
Mhm.
situation that that company's dealing with and their expectations for this role. We call it, I said, playlist, because we talk about remixing stories. So you don't need 100
Yep.
stories for 100 questions. You need like 12 stories for 100 questions that you can remix. So when I say remix, it's like, well, for the CFO, I might tell one story, but I'm focusing on profitability because I'm a sales leader, and we
Yep.
we blew through our goal by 71%. The CFO is going to go, yeah, because you gave it all away. I mean, did we make any money on all those sales, or did you just give it all away? That's why you had a good sales year, but we had a bad profit year. So I'm going to spin that story that was all profitable. I could tell the exact same story to the CEO, how it was strategically important and how we were able to advance the strategy of the company, take down a competitor, do something that the CEO feels is really, really important. I might tell that exact same story to the CHRO, the HR executive, and talk about
Mhm.
teamwork, collaboration,
Yeah.
cross-functional, working together. Yeah, how this lived out our values, right, of transparency and integrity and whatever. And the melody is the same. It's got a more rock and roll beat to one person, more of a country beat to somebody else, and more hip hop to the third one. The melody is the same. It's the same story, but have enough emotional intelligence to be able to remix that story depending on who I'm talking to. That's what I mean about conducting a sales call and really driving the narrative in the direction that you want it to go.
And that is more sick career advice there, Bob, about kind of knowing your audience and playing the tune that they want to hear, not what you want to sing or what you want to play. You're entertaining, you're selling your services or renting your services, as I like to say. I like to say it's talent as a service. So you're essentially selling your wares or renting your wares, but you need to get someone to buy your services for $200,000 a year, $300,000 a year, whatever it is. And you talked about the sales analogy, and I love the sales and marketing analogy, and you talked about the pipeline, and you also
Yeah.
talked about, hey, your sales quote is only one closed sales deal here, but you also talked about the importance of having a big pipeline, having that pipeline wide. And I know on your LinkedIn profile, your banner says find great companies to work at, and you highlight industry,
Mm-hmm.
location, size, funding. So how many companies or organizations or roles do you generally suggest people to have in their pipeline? And how should they think about that?
One of the key mistakes that people make is they fall in love with one or two opportunities, and inevitably both of those eggs break. And so something that ends up, one, it's very depressing because you were so amped up about a given role, and then they lost their funding for it. The hiring manager just quit, so we have to backfill her role before we could. I mean, there's a million reasons of why all this stuff happens that may have nothing to do with you as a candidate. It's got everything to do with your
Mm-hmm.
financial and emotional reality on how long your job search is going to take. So, first bit of advice on building out that pipeline is have a bunch of stuff working so that you can absorb when something goes sideways, because it will, and that you're not starting all over again. And now you've got to build 4 months all over again of getting that far into the process with somebody because you didn't have enough stuff working. So create margin by having diversity of opportunity. So that's sort of the first thing. But with the targeting, we said at the beginning, as a marketer, I know who my consumer segment is that should be resonating with this value proposition. And so what we encourage people to do is be very proactive in identifying the companies that should have an appreciation for their selling proposition. What it is, as you say, they're renting as talent as a service in the marketplace.
Right.
So rather than be reactive to what's being presented to you on LinkedIn or Indeed, because a salesperson would do this, it'd be, Bob, here's what we sell. Bob, here's your quota. Bob, here's your territory. Go. That's it.
Yes.
And now I have to go make things happen. The name of our master class is Making Your Own Weather. It's like, dude, go make something happen. Don't wait for it to happen to you. Go make something happen. So if I understand my value proposition, and if I've got a good idea of who's likely to be interested in that, then I need to go find companies that meet that criteria, that when I proactively show up on the hiring manager or the CXO for the functional area that I report to, hey, recently I've been researching your company. I saw where you guys, just landed $50 million in funding. Way to go. The reason I'm reaching out to you is my experience is in helping scale companies who are taking it, from this level to the next. By way of background, bullet, bullet, bullet. Can we find 30 minutes to get acquainted? That's what salespeople do all day. That's what successful candidates who will shorten their time frame and enhance the quality of their experience are doing. Targeting companies is really important. You said industry, Alan. I'd love to hear your take on this one. My belief is that industry is really important. Why? Because clients think that it's really important. You and I could agree all day long on transferable skills. I agree. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that companies are a little dumb in how they think about this. But hiring is a risk mitigation activity for the company. They're trying to not screw it up. And so they
Right.
believe that one of the strongest proxies for success is, do you already understand our industry? Because I don't have to spend the time/money to teach you about aero defense if you've been in consumer packaged goods your whole life. So if we can get somebody that comes from, generally speaking, our industry, that's important. I know people want to pivot, and I know that people want a new challenge, or they think that they can do it. Just know that you're swimming upstream a little bit in the minds of the consumer, the buyer, of renter of your services. They may
Yeah.
not share that belief. How do you advise clients on industry?
I generally advise people to focus on industries that are growing, that are profitable, that pay that because of that profit they can pay you well. But to your
Yep.
point, You also need to understand the mindset of the buyer, the person that you're selling your services to or renting your services to. So you need to have some demonstrated authority there, either from an industry perspective. So if you're coming from financial services, it's really hard to go into pharma.
Right.
But if you have functional expertise, so maybe if you're in financial services as a marketer, perhaps you can go into pharma as a marketer because you have that same commonality of that functional skill. To your point, you'll need to sell that to the individual, and your resume will likely not get picked up if you have JP Morgan on there and Goldman Sachs and you're interviewing for Novartis. They're not going to pick your resume. But if you network in there and you demonstrate to someone at Novartis that you know how to sell to B2B or big institutions, right, and you can do that with Novartis to sell into big hospitals, and you can get them comfortable with that through those networking calls, then you can make that shift. So I like to think of it as you need to have something in consistency, either industry or function, and ideally both. That will make you the most attractive. But for people that want to pivot, you can usually pivot one and not the other. But then once you're inside, then you can make the move.
No, no, but it's right. And one of the things that you said that I want to pick up on is the networking piece, because that's part of what can help bridge the gap is I know Alan. And so if I can be recommending you to the hiring manager, I've gotten to know Alan and he's really, really strong. And he may not have exactly pharma experience, but this guy's a killer marketer and he totally gets B2B. He's the best I've met. Well, okay, like that starts to bridge some of that trust gap that makes me believe maybe this guy can do it. Maybe I am willing to give up a little bit of my industry orthodoxy to give Alan a fair hearing. So it really resonates with me what you said.
Yeah, I think we have very shared strategies and perspectives on here. I'm curious if we'll find any point of differentiation as we continue the conversation. We'll see about that. And you talk about that you're selling a lot and you're marketing and selling. And let's talk a little bit about the marketing. Generally, I think from the marketing side, there are two main elements that you have as an individual to market yourself. There's some others, but the two primary ones are usually your resume and your LinkedIn profile. How else do you think about marketing yourself outside of those two key elements?
Oh, gosh. Yes, yes, and yes. So, for sure. So, talking about LinkedIn, most people would think about your LinkedIn profile, which is fine. And as you know well, Alan, a lot of that is an SEO. It's a search engine optimization exercise, right? I mean, do you have the keywords back to thinking like the animal that you're hunting? In this case, what's the recruiter looking for? What has the person in talent acquisition been tasked with? Go find me a strong B2B marketer, et cetera, et cetera. Well, do you have B2B on your profile? Do you have other enterprise, SaaS, the key words that they're looking for on your LinkedIn profile in the right places enough times that that recruiter is going to find you for what you want to be found for? So, LinkedIn profile optimization is a whole thing, but that's sort of first base for me. The real power of LinkedIn is what it is. It's a social media network. So are you building relationships with people on LinkedIn so that if Alan Stein is a career expert who I really like, well, when you're posting stuff, I'm going to comment on it. And I'm not just going to say, great post, Alan. Hey, that was some sick advice, Alan. I might say some of that, but I'm going to build on your point. No, but I'm going to show off some of my chops and contribute to the conversation. So if I was interviewing for a marketing role and I see that the EVP of marketing at Kraft Heinz is, talking about something on LinkedIn and I want to work at Kraft Heinz, I'm going to be commenting in a pretty intelligent way on LinkedIn on her profile and when she posts stuff so that she starts to know my name and that we can start to build a relationship. And I might send her a message on LinkedIn. At the end of the day, people hire people. ATSs don't hire people. People hire people. And building a relationship like that on LinkedIn is really powerful. Another strategy that we've seen clients do really well, particularly ones who are in transition, is say, for example, Adam Grant just wrote a new book. And it's almost parenthetical. While I've been exploring my next great opportunity, I've been spending some time catching up on some reading that I wanted to do. Adam Grant recently wrote a new book on X, and I really had three takeaways from it: one, two, and three. And can't recommend this book enough. When our clients see them, they do stuff like that, and then they've got like a picture of the book on there. They've tagged Adam
Hmm.
Grant. They've tagged the name of the book. Right? There might be some key words that they've hashtagged on there. They've mentioned, again, parenthetically, that they're in transition right now, but they're also going out there saying, hey, this is a topic that I'm reading on, I'm getting smarter on, is of interest to me, wanted to share with my network. And what we find is clients see that their network lights up and like, dude, didn't know you were looking. Hey, give me a call. Let's get caught up. Happy to help. I've got some people. We've actually got an opening for you, and they are activating their network by bringing value to their network, not just sort of hanging the open for work collar around themselves and
Yep.
saying, hey, it's been 6 months and I've done 1,000 applications. And that's whining, and nobody wants to listen to whining.
Yeah, I used to call it the cone of desperation, kind of like the dog, like when the dogs have their collar,
It is.
the cone of
It
shame
is.
on there. But I've actually seen the open to work circle work beneficially. So I'm actually of mixed perspective there. But let's not go down that rabbit hole at this point because we could have a whole podcast about the open to work circle. As you talk about the sales effort and you talk about having a broad pipeline because you just need one deal to close, and
That's right.
I'm assuming, like similar to my experience, you'll see a lot of people get rejected, ghosted, turned down for jobs that they're perfectly qualified for. And sometimes because they could have prepared more, but often they did everything in their best control and they just didn't get the job because there's multiple candidates, there's lots of good talent out there. So people are going to get rejected a lot. And I know this is something that you like to talk about, not in a positive thing, but really the importance of mental resilience during a
Yes.
job search and how people should think about that. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that. I know you've had some
Yeah.
posts on that and you really care about this.
Yeah, thank you for asking on because you're right. I do think that's a big piece of what we've tried to develop at Career Club. I say the road to yes is littered with no, and it's true. And anybody who's been in job search for half an hour knows that that's true. So we're very big on community. It's one of the reasons I named it Career Club. So you feel like you're part of something again, because it can be
Yeah.
very isolating, and so we do a lot of things to foster community, accountability partners, networking, stuff like that. So I think all that's important. The resilience piece is really important. The way that we want to help people think about is how to not just survive this particular stage of your life, but how to thrive during it. Because say that you've been laid off or somehow let go of from your most recent role. There's a lot of emotions that are very human emotions to be feeling, and they need to be dealt with. And so we say sometimes you need to slow down to hurry up. So if sometimes we'll see our members who just like want to run and start networking immediately, but their headspace is not where it needs to be. And they need to kind of
Hmm.
let the past go. Even if you're right, God bless you, you got screwed, it wasn't fair, I'm sorry. But you don't need to keep telling everybody how unfair that it was and how poorly you
Right.
were treated and you shouldn't even be here. So, we talk about keeping an even keel, where KEEL, know that you're going to land somewhere. Know that everybody lands. Know that you're going to land somewhere. That's the K. The E is emotional ups and downs are part of the trip. Just expect it. Emotional ups and downs are part of the journey. You know it's going to happen. Don't be surprised. It's not just you, it happens to everybody. The second E is really important, which is expect the best from yourself and from other people. We talked about networking earlier, and sometimes people will not reach out because I don't want to bug you, and I know you're really busy, and you already talked to me 3 months ago, and they'll just make up all these reasons to not do it. It's people, most people are nice, most people want to help. And then the expect the best from yourself piece of that is you are a valuable person. You have contributed over the course of your career. You do have accomplishments. You are a good team member. And not getting too down on yourself and kind of, you know, auto opting out because you don't think that you have any
Yep.
value. So Know you're going to land, emotional ups and downs, expect the best from yourself and from others. The L is letting go of the past, and that's the anger bit. And anger unattended to often turns into bitterness. And I think it's Nelson Mandela. Bitterness is like swallowing poison and waiting for the other person to die. It might make you feel better, but you've got to let it go. And when you can let it go and move forward, even though it was an unfortunate situation and how you got into this circumstance, you've got to let it go and focus on the future, not on the past. And if you can focus on the future, you'll find the good in it. You're going to meet a bunch of amazing people. Doors are going to open up that never would have opened up before, but you need to be looking for what you want to find. And I mean that attitudinally, not just literally. But if you want to find good things that are going to happen, you need to be looking for good things to happen, and they will.
You're talking about the even keel, and I jotted this down because this is good. I'm going to use this. I'm going to give you credit because you deserve the credit for this. I love acronyms, by the way. K is know you'll get a job. E is you will have emotional ups and downs, and just be prepared for that. The second E is expect the best in people and in opportunities. And L is like let go of the past. Oh, expect the best in yourself as well.
So many people have low self-esteem during a job search,
Yes.
and it's like, no, you need to see yourself for the value that you really bring. Yeah, and then the L is letting go of the past, which may be one of the most important aspects of this.
We have a few minutes left here, so I just want to wrap it up with three questions. One
Please.
is, what is the hardest interview question that you think that people generally get, and like, how do you prepare them for that?
So you're going to laugh, and this will sound like an uninspired answer, but I think it's true, which is tell me about yourself.
Mhm.
People just stumble all over themselves with this question. And we spend a lot of time with our clients. Not that there's a formulaic exactly answer to that, but you need to know your message. And the way that we would encourage people to answer that question broadly is a little bit about you as a human being, how that's informed your career to date, and how that then sets the table for what you're looking for next. So, if I could give
Hmm.
a lame example with myself, so I love to solve problems. I'm a crossword puzzle freak. I love doing the New York Times crossword puzzle. I just like trying to find the answer. So I've often found myself in strategic roles where it's like we're trying to put pieces of a puzzle together, take the little bits that we do know to fill out the rest of it. So oftentimes I've found myself, leading initiatives or leading teams that are more greenfield, more kind of pushing the envelope, places that people haven't been before, which has been really fun, whether it's the engagement at Coca-Cola, Procter and Gamble, Career Club, all have been fairly new adventures. Where that's led me to is now wanting to have a company that allows people to explore what's next for them and do it in a structured way with process and with community so that they can land the job that they want that's meaningful to them in the shortest period of time possible.
That's great. And I had a story once when I was interviewing someone at Google. I interviewed about 250, 225 people in 1 year.
Jeez.
And that question, I would always ask people, tell me about yourself or walk me through your resume. And one 22-year-old took 17 minutes to walk me through that. And he was 1 year out of school, and we only had 30 minutes for the interview. So that was like the first and last question that I asked him. But anyway, I digress. So that's a good question. The last two questions I got for you is, what is one last parting piece of sick career advice that you'd leave Acceleration Nation with here?
Okay, I'm going to go really fast, but you're going to love this. This is the 4 C's, Alan. You ready? This is a very, very important piece that we're going to talk about. The 4 C's. What are your convictions? First C is convictions. What is true for you? What you know is true for you from a values perspective, from a what you're good at perspective, what you're passionate about, or at least interested in. But what's true for you? When you've got your convictions, then that leads to clarity, which is the second C. So now I know what to say yes to, and I know what to say no to. So somebody may have a role. Hey, dude, you should come interview for this job. We've got a role over here. It's doing this. I'm sure that's a great role, but because I know what I'm looking for, that's not what I'm looking for. And having the courage to say no to something And back in marketing, that's the true hallmark of a brand, is knowing what it is, and at least as importantly, what it's not. So the second C is having
Hmm.
clarity. When you've got that clarity, it leads to the third C, which is confidence. Because now I'm not trying to guess the right answer. I'm not desperate. I'm just telling you what's true for me. And when we're confident, we sit up straighter, we smile more, our eyes are more open, we modulate differently, we lean in. These are all the things. It's not arrogant, it's not cocky, it's just confident. I'm talking about something that I believe in, and I talk about it like I believe in it. And then this is the sick career advice piece of this one. The fourth C is confidence is contagious. When you believe, you make me believe. And again, people hire people that they like, trust, believe. And when you believe what you're telling me and you're doing it authentically and positively, those are the people that get hired, even when maybe not every little nit on the resume lines up exactly. It's just I can see myself working with Alan. I like this guy. Like this is my candidate. So convictions, they lead to clarity. Clarity gives you the freedom to be confident. And when we're confident, confidence is contagious.
That's awesome. That is sick advice. And I do love the alliterations. I love the acronyms. I love the alliteration. So, again, awesome. Conviction leads to clarity, and the clarity leads to confidence, and the confidence is contagious. The four C's.
Amen, brother. You got it.
Last question I got for you, Bob. Where can people find you and learn more about you and Career Club?
Career.club. So the extension is .club, which is cool that was even available. I didn't know that was a thing till we found it. So career.club. Then I too do a podcast, Career Club Live with Bob Goodwin. We've been very blessed to have some amazing guests. We just did the Chief Human Resource Officer for Kroger. We've had the chief people officer for McKinsey and SHRM and some
Yes.
big organizations. Part of our practice, Alan, is in outplacement. So we work with individual clients, but we also work with companies who are letting go of larger swaths of people. And we found that outplacement was definitely a fairly ripe field to go plow, because innovation hasn't touched it in a long, long time. So, but I would encourage people, please, contact me at bob@career.club. Would love to connect with people on LinkedIn. And, if there's any way that I can be of help to folks, and again, not always in a commercial way, but any way that I can, I'd love to.
Awesome, Bob. Well, it's great that we got you here on the podcast. I know we had a couple of rescheduling. I appreciate your flexibility with that.
Yes.
And I know you're out of the country right now, but I appreciate that. I appreciate all the sick career advice that you offered. And thank you once again for joining the Sick Career Podcast.
Alan, this has been very much fun. Again, like you said, it's fun talking to somebody who, air quote, gets it, at least as I see it. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. So thank you.
Awesome, Bob. Thank you.